Neighbors and loved ones remember Jennifer Brown one day after her body was found partially buried outside of a warehouse in Royersford.
On January 3, 2023, 43-year-old Jennifer Brown disappeared in Limerick Township, Pennsylvania, leaving her 8-year-old son Noah alone at home. The next day, on January 4th, her close friend and business partner, 33-year-old Blair Watts, reported her missing when he could not get in touch with her. A large-scale search began as authorities, as well as her family and friends, scoured the town for any traces she could have left behind. What could have happened to Jennifer? Why would she abandon her son without any explanation? Hi friends, and welcome back to Mysterious Hook, where we cover under-the-radar cases from across the country. In today's case, we will be looking at a recent crime where an 8-year-old boy helped solve his own mother's murder. But before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel as it helps us and motivates us to keep creating engaging content for you. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the mystery. Limerick Township is a township in Montgomery County in the state of Pennsylvania in the United States. The township was named after the hometown of early settler William Evans, whose family arrived in the area from Limerick, Ireland in 1698. It can be found about 34 miles northwest of the city of Philadelphia, and today it has a population of just over 20,000 people. The town is drained by the Schuylkill River, which separates it from Chester County. One of its major industries is the Limerick nuclear power plant, which provides employment to a number of people within the town. And it is here in Limerick Township that our story begins today. Jennifer Brown was born in 1979 in the United States of America. Growing up in the 80s, she had a happy and carefree childhood. Not much else is known about the early life of Jennifer Brown or where she came from. In 2014, she had her first and only child, a beautiful boy named Noah, who was the apple of her eye. His father was not in the picture, and she raised him on her own. She was a devoted mother who doted on her son, especially since he was diagnosed with autism at an early age and needed extra care and attention. In 2023, Jennifer was 43 years old and her son Noah was 8. They were living a happy life at 1408 Stratford Court in Limerick Township in Pennsylvania and needed nothing except each other. Their loved ones and neighbors saw the bond the two had and loved them for the kind and caring people they were. But tragedy was waiting just around the corner, and it arrived when they were least expecting it. On January 3, 2023, Jennifer Brown disappeared without any explanation to where she could have been. The last person to see her was her friend Blair Watts, who had been at her place from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. that day and had agreed to pick up her son Noah from his bus stop after school to take him for a sleepover to his house with his own 3 children, something that they did quite often. The next day, on January 4th, Noah was dropped off at his bus stop by Blair and attended school like he always did. However, that day at school, Noah seemed distraught and was acting out in class in a manner that was quite unusual for him. Concerned about his behavior, his teachers tried to find out why he was acting like this, and they learned that he had missed the last 2 doses of his autism medication, something that never happened. Noah also told them that his mother had gone to the grocery store and never come back. This further worried his teachers, as they knew Jennifer was a very hands-on mom who loved her son and would never forget to give him his medication and would never leave him alone. They tried to get in touch with her throughout the day but could not do so, which made them sure that something had gone wrong, as Jennifer always responded when it came to any problems her son might be having in school. At the same time that day, Jennifer's friend Blair Watts had also been trying to get in touch with her, but had had no success. He went over to Noah's bus stop at 4 p.m. that day to see if Jennifer would be there to pick him up, but she did not show. He picked up Noah himself and had no option left but to report her missing to the police. At 4:20 p.m. that day, Officer Stephen Crawford of the Limerick Township Police Department went over to 1408 Stratford Court to conduct a welfare check on Jennifer's home after she was reported missing. He found that her car was parked outside her home, and after entering the residence, he found her keys, purse, tablet, and work cell phone were all still inside the house. However, her personal cell phone was nowhere to be found, and when the police tried to track it down, they found that it had been switched off at 7 a.m. on January 4th and hadn't been traceable since. Its last known location was within 400 meters of Lewis Road and Ridge Pike in Limerick Township. Now sure that something bad had happened to Jennifer, she was confirmed as missing and a thorough investigation was launched into her disappearance. Police began by interviewing her family and friends as well as her neighbors to find out if anyone had seen or heard anything around the time she disappeared, or if they knew of any personal reasons that may have caused Jennifer to leave. But no one had seen or heard anything at the time, and everyone they spoke to, including her aunt Diane Bream, her friend Tiffany Barron, and her friend and business partner Blair Watts, said that there was no way Jennifer would leave on her own, as she would never abandon her son Noah, who she loved with all her heart. With no real leads to follow, they launched a search for her in the town and the surrounding areas, which was conducted by authorities as well as her family and friends and other volunteers who joined in. Despite a large number of people working together and thoroughly searching the area for the next 2 weeks, they could not find any traces of her or clues as to where she might have been. Her loved ones put out statements to the public pleading for anyone with any information to come forward, but nothing was reported. It seemed like Jennifer had vanished without a trace and may never be found. But on January 18th, 2 weeks after she had been reported missing, 2 employees who worked at a warehouse near the city of Royersford, a neighbouring municipality to Limerick Town, went out for a smoke break in a field behind the warehouse. While they were smoking, they noticed something strange. It was a hole that they had not seen before that appeared to have been freshly dug. When they went closer to examine it, they were horrified to find the body of a woman buried there in a shallow grave. They immediately notified the police, who arrived soon after, and on examining the body, police identified the woman as the person they had been searching for the past 2 weeks. None other than Jennifer Brown. When the body was taken for an autopsy, the examiners determined the cause of death to be homicide by unspecified means. They were able to determine Jennifer had died from asphyxiation, which means that she had been strangled or suffocated to death in some way. They also found that she had 3 broken ribs, indicating that she had likely struggled against her killer, who had beaten her to subdue her. Now, the nature of the investigation changed from a missing persons case to a homicide, and police once again began to interview and interrogate everyone close to her, including her family and friends. However, the interviews they conducted did not turn up any new information or leads for them to follow. Due to this, they could not even identify any possible suspects in the case. It seemed like the investigation was going to fizzle out with nothing for the police to follow. But then, when they were least expecting it, they got a lead from an unexpected source. When the news regarding Jennifer's murder was released to the public, the police asked that anyone having any information that might be useful to the investigation should come forward and disclose it. In response to this, one of Noah's teachers came forward and revealed to the police that on January 4th, the day that Jennifer had gone missing, Noah had told her some information that she thought was unimportant at the time, but she realized was suspicious after learning of Jennifer's death. She told them that Noah had told her that when Blair Watts had picked him up from his bus stop on January 3rd, he had stopped at Noah's home under the pretext of getting Noah's iPad from the house. But when he returned, Noah saw that along with his iPad, Blair also had Jennifer's personal phone with him. Noah was sure that this was his mother's phone, as the image on the lock screen was a picture of him in the 2nd grade, something he recognized immediately. This was a major breakthrough for the police, as they had previously believed that whoever had killed Jennifer had taken her cell phone and knew that if they could find the person with the phone, they would have a suspect. Blair Watts now became the prime suspect in their eyes, and they decided to take a thorough look into his relationship with Jennifer to see if there was anything they had missed. When they did this, a number of details emerged that shocked the investigators looking into the matter. When the detectives began to look into the relationship between Jennifer and Blair, they discovered a number of suspicious details. On the personal side of their relationship, everything seemed to check out. The two did appear to be close friends who spent a lot of time together and knew each other's family and friends. But when they looked into their professional relationship as business partners, things were not as rosy as they seemed on the surface. Blair had owned a restaurant by the name of Birdie's Kitchen that ultimately went out of business and shut down in the early months of 2022. After this, he turned to Jennifer for help, and in August 2022, she agreed to help him by investing in his business so he could reopen Birdie's Kitchen at a new location. They signed a contract that said Jennifer would provide Blair with money every 6 weeks or so, which he would use to eventually get Birdie's Kitchen back in business. According to Blair, between August and January, Jennifer sent him around $36,000 to help him set up his business again. He also stated that according to their contract, she still owed him another $9,000 to fulfill her side of the deal. Blair had found a new location for the restaurant and was supposed to pay the property owners a sum of money and sign a lease so that he could open Birdie's Kitchen there in January of 2023. This money was given to him by Jennifer as an investment, but Blair never actually paid the property owners. He instead secretly blew the money on himself and his personal activities. On December 26, 2022, the property owners revoked the agreement they had with him as he failed to pay them the sum he owed them for the lease. This put Blair in a desperate situation. He now had no money and no location to open his restaurant. Police were sure in his desperation he had done something atrocious to try and save himself. They looked into the transaction history on Jennifer's iPad, which had been present in her home, and they found that on January 3rd there were 2 cash transfers from her account to Birdie's Kitchen, which totaled an amount of $17,000, which was never a part of the written agreement between Jennifer and Blair. They also saw that the transfers had failed multiple times and were only successful when the 2-factor authentication system on the iPad was disabled. Police then interviewed the property owners who had revoked the agreement with Blair, and they learned that on January 4th, the very same day that Blair had reported Jennifer as missing, he had shown up at the property and told the owners he now had the money that he needed to put down a lease. Police were now sure that Blair had murdered his friend and business partner, but since they knew he would likely not confess to the crime, seeing the lengths he had gone to cover it up, they decided they needed more evidence against him. Next, they interviewed his wife Tiara Taylor and asked her about Blair's whereabouts on January 3rd, the day that they believed he murdered Jennifer. His wife told them that Blair had gone over to Jennifer's around 1 p.m. on that day and had then returned home at around 4:30 p.m. with Noah after picking him up at his stop. She then told them that he had only been at home for a short time before leaving again at around 5 p.m. and not returning home that night. When police looked into where Blair had gone after leaving home, they found out that he had spent the night with his mistress, a woman named Tatiana Garrett. But when they interviewed Tatiana, she told them that Blair only met her around 8 p.m., which meant that between 5 and 8 p.m. there was a window of time where his location was unaccounted for. The detectives now had enough information to construct a timeline of how they believed the murder had taken place. They believed that on January 3rd, Blair had gone over to Jennifer's while Noah was at school at around 1 p.m. and murdered her. He then made the cash transfer to his account from her iPad and left to pick up Noah from his bus stop around 4 p.m. He then returned to Jennifer's home, saying he wanted to get Noah's iPad, but also stole Jennifer's mobile phone as well, the crucial piece of evidence that had led them to suspecting him. After this, he had returned home, dropped Noah off, and then left again at 5 p.m. to Jennifer's, where he collected her body and then drove it to the field near Royersford, where he buried her in a shallow grave. He had then gone to meet his mistress and spent the rest of the night with her, before returning home in the morning so he could drop off Noah at the bus stop. He had then gone to the property owners to tell them he now had the money for the lease, and then returned around 4 p.m. to pretend to see if Jennifer would pick up Noah from the bus stop, so he could then report her missing to the police and make sure that they did not suspect him. He had meticulously planned everything out and may have gotten away with it if it wasn't for the mistake he made letting Noah see his mother's phone. It was Noah seeing the phone and telling his teacher about it that led the police right to Blair. The police now had enough evidence to charge him, but they did one final thing to be sure. They used a cadaver dog that was trained to smell out biological remains and identify them, to first sniff out Jennifer's home, where it identified that she had been killed in her kitchen from the smell that lingered there. They then took this dog to Blair's car, and it identified the same smell as being present there as well. This was the final nail in the coffin for Blair, and it was the last piece of evidence the detectives needed. On February 8th, Blair was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, third-degree murder, and theft. He is currently being held at the Montgomery County Correctional Facility without the possibility of bail, and is awaiting a preliminary hearing. Jennifer's friends and family, who were devastated when she was found dead, are happy that her killer has been identified and that they have some form of closure. However, they are still reeling in shock that it was someone they all knew and trusted and who was supposed to be a close friend to Jennifer. It's literally like we're living in a movie that we watch on TV. It's so surreal and unbelievable. Tiffany Barron, Jennifer's friend who is acting as a spokesperson for the family, said in a statement to the press, "Once the case goes to trial, if Blair is found guilty, he will likely spend the rest of his life in jail." And there we have it, folks, the tale of how a case was only solved because the 8-year-old son of the victim noticed a mistake the killer made and didn't forget about it. This case serves as an example that when you commit a horrible act like Blair did, you will always get found out in the end. But what did you think of the case? Do you think Blair would have gotten away with it if Noah hadn't noticed his mother's phone? Or do you think it was only a matter of time till the police found out about the transactions he made and began to suspect him? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay safe, and thanks for watching.